Hey, it's Niall coming at you this week from the Faroe Islands. Three quick things you might not know about the place.
First, where the hell are the Faroe Islands? Well, they're here, a group of 18 islands about halfway between Scotland and Iceland. They're an autonomous country within the Kingdom of Denmark. Second, there are about 50,000 people living here, consisting of approximately 80 different nationalities. And one island in particular has just 8 people living there, and it's accessible only by helicopter. And third, the people here in the Faroe Islands must be a bit mad because they put grass on the rooftops.
So how are you supposed to get along more up there, huh? So the Faroe Islands are amazing and you should definitely come visit sometime. We're spending a week here, but I came in out of it for a bit to answer a question from Adil on YouTube. He's asking here if he should target clients in Switzerland for his freelance web development business. And I replied, hard to know if it's a good idea or not without trying it. I'd recommend looking up Riskiest Assumption Test and use that approach to quickly figure out if it's worth pursuing or not. So I wanted to make a quick video about Riskiest Assumption Testing and how to use that, because it's a tool that can save you from wasting a lot of time and energy when building your online business. Here's the plan. First, I'll give you an example of Riskiest Assumption Testing, or RAT for short, and then we'll dive a bit more into the theory. Does that sound good? All right then. 2 years ago, I was living in Berlin for a few months and I had the best idea ever. I realized that a great niche for my web design business would be, wait for it, Irish pubs. I mean, think about it. I'm Irish. I've been a web developer for many years. Irish pubs are everywhere. There's even one here in the Faroe Islands. And their websites are generally pretty crap. I mean, clearly I was onto a winner and it was only a matter of time before I became super rich. But here's the thing about ideas. You never really know if an idea is good or not until you actually test it out in the real world. So the first thing I did when I had my brilliant idea was sit down and list out all the assumptions I was making. And the biggest, riskiest assumption I was making clearly was that Irish pub owners would be willing to pay someone, anyone, to build them a better website. If that assumption was true, then brilliant, I'd be off to the races. But if that assumption was false, then my idea wasn't worth anything. The next step then, after identifying that riskiest assumption, was to test it. And it dawned on me that the quickest way to test whether or not Irish pub owners would be willing to pay someone to build them a better website was to go and ask them. So that's what I did. I jumped on my bike and I cycled around to all the Irish pubs in Berlin and I spoke with the owners. And those conversations, they went a little like this. Hey, Mr. Irish pub owner, would you like a new website? No, we're grand, thanks. Yeah, wasn't a great response. Now, I could probably have been more persuasive and probably could have done a better job of selling them on the idea of having a new website. But you see, it's kind of difficult to sell a solution to a problem that people don't even believe they have. So after speaking to a whole bunch of Irish pub owners in Berlin and not getting a good response from any of them, I decided that my brilliant business idea wasn't so brilliant after all, and I dropped it. And that right there is Riskiest Assumption Testing. And it's a great tool because it took me only a couple of days and several conversations to figure out that my idea wasn't going to work and that it wasn't worth pursuing any further. Now compare that with an alternative way to test a business idea, and that's by building what's called a minimum viable product, or an MVP. And if I had taken the MVP approach, what would I have done? I probably would have built a showcase Irish pub website, or maybe even some kind of CMS platform that Irish pub owners could use to quickly build and host their own websites. And then I would have tried to drive traffic to a landing page and spent months creating articles and guides to help Irish pub owners develop a better web presence, hoping that eventually a load of them would want to hire me to do it for them. And I could have spent several months doing all of that and eventually reached the same conclusion: that my idea wasn't going to work. Now, that's not to say that there isn't a time and a place for building a minimum viable product, because there absolutely is. But I would encourage you to give riskiest assumption testing a try before you go the MVP route, because it can just save you a lot of time and energy. And just to be clear then on the steps for riskiest assumption testing: first, you come up with your idea. Second, you list out all the things that would have to be true for that idea to succeed. So those are your assumptions right there. And the third thing then, you would pick out the riskiest assumption from that list. That's the big assumption that everything else depends on. Fourth, you would figure out the fastest or easiest or cheapest way to test that assumption. And fifth, you would actually go and test it. If the test fails, you move on to another idea, so you go back to step 1. And if the test passes, then you cycle back to step 3 and you pick the next biggest, riskiest assumption and you go ahead and you test that one next. And that's pretty much it. So to get back to Adil's question, he was asking if Switzerland would be a good target market for his freelance web development business. So how would we use riskiest assumption testing to figure that out? Well, the riskiest assumption there is similar to the one I was making with my Irish pubs idea, and that is that my target market would actually be interested in the service I wanted to offer. Now, Adil mentioned that he's living in Africa, so he'd need a way to test his idea remotely. What I'd suggest is finding online groups for Swiss business people and entrepreneurs, making an offer to members of those groups and seeing how they respond. And I'll share with you a great example of this approach that I once saw in a Facebook group called The Cult of Copy. This lady, Lauren Ray Gordon, who was new in the group, she'd only joined the day before, despite her claim that lots of you already know me. She posted this offer for her copywriting services, and as you can see there in the comments, within 24 hours or so, she had 3 clients interested. Now, I don't know Lauren's story, but given that she was new to the group, I suspect she was doing her own little riskiest assumption test there to see if there was a market for her copywriting services. If she'd gotten no responses to that post, I imagine she would have moved on to testing with another audience and perhaps even with a different offer. So Adil, if you're watching, I'd recommend finding some Swiss business groups on Facebook, maybe LinkedIn, and emulating Lauren's approach to see if there's any interest there for your web development services. Depending on the group though, you might want to contact an admin first and ask if it's okay for you to post something like that in there, because some groups don't like people posting promotional stuff. So definitely check that first. Okay, we're done already. Fantastic. If you found that helpful, give us a quick click on the like button there, or better yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button so you'll see a new video from me each week. Signing off from the Faroe Islands, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.